Welcome, PeterCast listeners and subscribers. The Bucs have had their first day in pads at training camp, day 3. That means I'm back with Ren's Training Camp Journals. Episode 1 of the 2019 edition coming up right now.
Well, you made me weep, and you made me moan. Well, you caused me to leave, child, my happy home. But someday, baby, you ain't worry my life anymore.
Giving you what I see at Bucs training camp. This is going to be an almost daily podcast, as it has been for the past 2 years, but we're changing it up a little. Last year, or I guess the last 2 years, I've been reporting on, things like Gerald McCoy's shoes and what training camp looks like as far as the setup and talking about how hey, the indoor facility is 35% completed, and now it's 55% completed, and things like that. But now I'm trying to morph it into something different this year, give you a different take about the things, because if you've been following the show, now you know what training camp looks like, and those things such as the covered tents are back. We know all that stuff now. So I've been grabbing audio from fans, and they've been talking about what they're excited to see, what players they want to watch, what some of their fears are, and that will be coming up on future episodes. But right now, I'm just going to sort of give you a background on what we're doing with the PeterCast this year as far as training camp goes. The Buccaneers were nice enough to give us 6 days of credential media access. We've used one of them, which was day 1 of camp, had to be their day 1. And then we took the route of taking days that not everyone's going to be there, not everyone can get into. So we want to do the Women of Red event again because that's always such a fun event. And then we have the 2 days where it's a crew. They call it the crew member. If you're I'm not sure if it's season ticket, but I think if it's club seat and or suite seat owners, they have 2 special days, and you get to pick one of them, or they pick one of them for you. So the crowds will be a little smaller, and you won't be able to get as much info as you'd probably like as a Bucs fan because there's just not as many people there. So we'll be there those 2 days, and then we were lucky enough to get fully credentialed for both the practices with Miami. The squad scrimmages. So we'll get a little more access, be a little closer to the action, be able to send out lots of vids and pics and tweets from those 2 days when we're going against the Dolphins. But let's get into what I have seen so far. Like I said in the opening, it's the first day of pads has just passed. It's the 3rd day of training camp. I went to OTAs, then the first day of camp and the second day of camp and the 3rd day of camp. But the first 2 days of camp, it's shirts and shells. So I didn't really feel like I wanted to get on the pod and just start giving you, hey, well, this might look good, but they're not in pads. There's nothing I could tell you about the offensive line, the defensive line. Those are big issues for a lot of Bucs fans. How does Sue look? How does Vea look? Who's starting at right guard? How do they look? But since there was no contact, I couldn't say anything. I don't know. Yeah, Kappa looks good, I guess, because he stopped a guy in a helmet. So we've had our first day in pads, and we're going to get into that shortly. But first, I've got some things to talk about as far as the setup with the Buccaneers. They do have the covered tents back, which I mentioned. But here is something interesting. If you're going to camp, do not sit on the top row. This year, I guess the tents have like an eave, a little drop down, probably about 6 to 8 inches. The tent ends, and then it has a panel that comes, like straight down. And if you're sitting on the top row, those 6 to 8 inches, you can't see the field. Like, everyone's sort of like head and chest is cut off depending on how close or far away they are from the stand. So, um, I recommend, it's good to be at the top because there's less people, but you have to sit one bleacher down. So if you get there early, and you're at the top, and the players aren't out yet, I'm telling you, just move down one because then you're going to be able to see. But kudos to the Bucs for bringing back those tents. Last year it was nearly unbearable with the heat. If there was, we'll say there was 5,000 fans, half of them were inside the indoor facility most of the time because it was just so hot, and there was zero shade. And since the field is crowned, as you get further and further away from the field, it actually slopes down instead of slopes up. So if you weren't standing in the front row or the front two rows, then it was really hard to see practice because there's people in front of you, but then also you're standing lower than the people that are in front of you. So I think the Bucs saw the error of their ways and put up the tents. We know that, and so that's good. That was fun to see. A couple of things really quick. Now the Buccaneers have a tractor trailer where the sides pop up for the merchandise. It used to be sort of like a farmer's market style type of tent they had out there, so they changed that. And I guess the last thing that I really want to tell you guys, and this is something I found out, is you can't go into training camp unless you have a clear bag. I've actually seen some people with clear backpacks in there, so if you want to go that route, that's good. But if you get there, you can buy a clear bag with the Buccaneers logo on it for $16.95, or you can go over to the Geico tent, and all they do is like take your picture, and they give you a clear bag with the Geico symbol on it. So save yourself $17 and just go over to Geico and grab yourself a clear bag. All right, enough of that stuff. Let's get into it. Everyone's wondering what's going on, and I'm starting with the defense. Why am I starting with the defense? Because it was so terrible, and they changed it over. Their first 4 draft picks were all defense. What I've seen so far, and this is the thing that I found most interesting, so I'm not going to bury the lead here. We know we're switching to a 3-4 defense, and then they're going to play lots of nickel, 70-75%. If you're playing the Giants, it's 80-85% that nickel's going to be on the field. But if you sort of count up the players, you got your 5 in the front and your 4 in the back. That's 9. So now you have 2 guys left, and one of them's Devin White, and one of them's Levante David. Now, if we're going to nickel, who's coming off the field? There's 2 ways you can look at this. One, you have like the Mike Edwards or a David Buchanan that can, actually be in there as a safety, but walk down and play the nickel spot, which would leave a safety as a single high sideline to sideline cover guy, or you have to pull one of the linebackers off the field. And I thought it was very interesting that they have decided, at least in the drills that I've seen, and once again, it's real early in camp, and take all this stuff with a grain of salt. They're installing a lot of stuff, doing a lot of things, but they have decided, from what I have seen, that Levante David is coming on the field, and they're leaving Devin White on there. And a lot of people have talked about all the responsibility he has, and he's up for it, and he's the future leader of the defense for the next decade, and all those things. But actually seeing Levante David take a seat because they want Devin White out there in coverage over him was eyebrow raising. Quan had his, I guess, he wasn't the best in coverage. I've said that many times on the pod before, but again, it was just it was interesting to see that Levante David come off the field in a nickel package. So I think that's sort of like the buzz about the defense, and how much trust and how the Buccaneers coaching staff and brass think that Devin White can be this player worthy of a top 5 draft pick, even at an inside linebacker. Now with the single high safeties, and I want to talk about this real quick. This is just going to be about Justin Evans. Um, I've heard a couple of pods and seen on Twitter and things like that, and that people are starting to worry about Justin Evans like starting, or even some people are like he's making the team because what a BA said in his press conference, which was the day before training camp even started. It's like someone asked about Justin Evans, and yeah, he's not back, and he's like, well, BA said something to the effect that I don't know, I haven't seen him play, so I don't know. And it wasn't like a glowing review. It wasn't like, yeah, Justin Evans will be one of our starting safeties when he comes back. Bruce Arians is honest. Like, I've only seen him on film. I don't really know what he can do. Now, Bruce Arians, before they broke for, the off season, I guess, when they were doing OTAs and minicamp, Bruce Arians was, saying that I'm excited to get Justin Evans out there to see what he can do. Bruce Arians has talked not glowingly about three people, and they've either had one was Gerald McCoy, and he said that way back at the owners meeting, I got to see if he has to fire. His contract isn't matching up to his production. And how did Gerald McCoy react? Well, he went on Instagram at Cinco de Mayo and talked about how dare people talk about his work ethic and all that, and my desire, and look at my kids, everyone's drinking, I'm out here working. He also did it with Vernon Hargreaves. Day one, I think it was, of OTAs or minicamp. I think it was day one of minicamp, and Hargreaves, sat out. And Bruce Arians, said something to the fact of, he's got to decide if he wants to practice or not. And what that is, that's Bruce Arians being Bruce Arians, which everyone's talked about. Master of the mind game. He's telling Vernon Hargreaves through the press, like, get your butt out there. And Vernon took it in stride. He's like, the media chased down Vernon next time they could find him, and Vernon's like, nah, it's just, it's coaching. That's it, And he did this, and he basically is doing the same thing with Justin Evans. He's not touting him. He's letting Justin Evans know that he needs to be out there. Now he's injured, and he's not saying that he's faking the injury, but Justin Evans has done nothing wrong. Justin Evans was the best safety on the team last year. He was the best safety on the team the year before that. He's not perfect, obviously, but if we're talking about, I'm going to go back to walking the safety down and keeping the two linebackers on the field if we're playing quote-unquote nickel with a single high safety. Justin Evans is the best we got there. Mike Edwards can do some things. Haven't really seen it yet. People talk about him. That he's a smart football player and has great ball instincts. I get it, but Justin Evans has proved it. So for me right now, he's really the only sort of single high safety that can cover sideline to sideline and do that job. So when I hear, people talk about, Mike Edwards and Justin Whitehead are the starter, and, Justin Evans is just lucky to be on the team, I'm exaggerating a bit. I think that talk is crazy. He's just injured. He's done nothing wrong. So we'll get off of safeties there. We'll talk about cornerbacks. Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, and VH3 have all looked good. They're really adapting well to this press man coverage. Shocker. And they're playing tight defense. They're getting hands on balls. Like every practice, they're getting hands on balls. Vernon, I think, has had 2 or maybe 3 picks already. Sean Murphy-Bunting has had some really athletic plays where he contorts his body and jumps out of the gym and knocks the ball down. And Davis is on everybody all the time. He probably has the most pass breakups. So as far as the defensive backfield, that's what I've seen. I haven't looked too much at the defensive line as far as like Anthony Nelson or Beckner. Those are guys I'm going to watch today. But the first day in pads, it was very evident that Sue and Vita Vea are going to be a handful. Those guys get movement on that interior line, and there was more than once that they broke through and just blow the play dead because it was a 3 to 5 yard tackle for loss or a sack and things like that. So this pairing of Sue and Vea that we weren't really sure about because Sue had question marks about his effort with the Rams until it was playoff time. That's still a we'll see. But the first day in pads, Sue was ready to go and he showed up. And so did Vita Vea. And, Vea. And, 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 speaking of people who showed up, A big disappointment that's been for the Buccaneers has been Noah Spence. 5.5 sacks his rookie years, had some strip sacks for some fumbles, and then he just sort of disappeared. He had an injury to his shoulder. Everyone knows his weight's gone up and down. I don't think Noah Spence could have a better training camp. Like, he couldn't have asked for a better training camp. Um, I understand a lot of fans, and I'm still there too. That, like, you have to show me, don't tell me. Oh, Noah Spence is going to be great this year. Kevin Minter's talked about Noah Spence, about how impressed he is. We're sort of in the, you have to show me, don't tell me. But I can tell you that, again, Noah Spence has had himself a camp, and it's early. It's only been 3 days, and Bruce Arians did say there were some, busted assignments on the offensive line. But what Todd Bowles is doing, Noah Spence seems to be in there almost exclusively, or at least a lot, early on with Carl Nassib. And wherever the tight end lines up, that's where they put Nassib, and they'll flip-flop Noah Spence to the other side to make sure he gets the one-on-one matchup with the offensive tackle, where he doesn't get double-teamed or he doesn't get chipped by the tight end before he goes out in a route. And it's paying off because his speed and strength as well. I mean, he pancaked Donovan Smith a couple of times. They weren't in pads yet. It was the last day of shorts and shells, and he pancaked Donovan Smith a couple of times. Didn't get to the quarterback, but to see that strength, because we've all seen the clips of Donovan Smith just kind of tossing people, right? He's inconsistent, and I don't want to get into Donovan Smith now, but what you don't see is people bull rush Donovan Smith. He has problems with speed around the outside. He doesn't move his feet quick enough sometimes, and he'll punch too early, and he gets himself off balance, and he gets in trouble. But no one have I ever seen, and I'm sure there's maybe a clip or two out there, but consistently I've never seen people just like bull rush Donovan Smith, and Noah Spence did it twice. So that's good to see for those people who are like, this 3-4 defense, Todd Bowles' defense is tailor-made for Noah Spence. So far, it looks like that's going to happen. I'm going to switch over to the offense, and honestly, there's not really much to tell. I know day one of training camp, there were some things that were put out by some people about, this is the worst I've ever seen Winston play, and Twitter kind of freaked out for a little bit. I've seen enough practice now. This is probably like my 30th, maybe 40th practice. Wait, that's too high. 30th. But my 30th practice over these past 3 years, and it's just Jameis Winston. It's the same. I'm not going to go into he gets too many interceptions or this or the line or any of that. Winston looks the same as he always has in practice, and take that for what you will. Peyton Barber looks strong. He looks like he's got some power. You can really see why Bruce Arians is like, Peyton Barber is going to be the hammer. Peyton Barber is looking good out there. He even looks like he has a little more burst, and it's been a while since I've seen him. So, again, take that with a grain of salt. But Peyton Barber looks good. Rojo's doing fine. Yes, he dropped a pass. That's the only one I've seen him drop in 3 days. Yes, it would have been a touchdown because the defense blew their coverage and no one was around him anywhere. And guess what? Every other player in the whole entire team has dropped a pass as well. Mike Evans has dropped a pass. Godwin's dropped a pass. OJ's dropped a pass. Haven't seen Cam Brake drop a pass. Scotty Miller's dropped a pass. Like, everyone's dropped a pass. So let's not freak out over Rojo yet, but still he is sort of a question mark. After one day in pads, he really didn't get a lot of opportunities with the ball, and when they did run the ball again, Vea and Sue, kind of like last year, he gets the ball, there's a guy standing in front of him. So we'll keep an eye on that, of course. But Andre Ellington looks really smooth catching the ball. It's he's just one of those guys where the ball hits his hands, is just kind of looks like it just kind of floats there, and you don't really hear the pass like pop, like hit his hands, and it's all so smooth for him. It's like one motion from when his arms come up till he catches the ball and tucks it away. It's all in one fluid motion. Like, his arms doesn't come up and he's waiting for the ball and he catches it, and then he has to switch hands and tuck it away. He's just smooth. So, I was saying earlier that this might be a guy that doesn't make the team. because uh, the guy from, sorry, South Dakota State, uh, Anderson, Bruce Anderson, yes, Bruce Anderson. Um, might be that guy that sort of pushes Ellington out as like a cheaper, younger version. Um, Again, early, but as of right now, Andre Ellington, he looks really smooth out there, and I from early things, I think he's going to make the roster. The O line. Here are my notes. Boo. Uh, as some of you might know, Donovan Smith was out first day of pads, probably because Noah Spence hurt him. They said like Bruce Arians said he nicked his Achilles. He was visibly sort of hobbling around. He wasn't a boot or anything, but he was being very ginger on whichever foot was bothering him. I don't know if he'll be back today. Donovan Smith, of course, has a reputation of being a fast healer and playing through pain. So I would not give it any worries whatsoever about Donovan Smith coming back. But putting Caleb Benenoch next to Ali Marpet as your backup tackle, and he's a backup tackle on either side. So if Doc goes down or Smith goes down, it's Caleb Benenoch. And yeah, I'm just gonna say it's early still, but it took about 2 plays before like Benenoch was 5 yards back in the backfield on his butt. Like the start of practice when it was inside. There was lightning, so they moved practice inside, and then when it cleared, they moved it outside. But when, like I said, it wasn't 2-3 plays into like 11 on 11s, and the quarterback would have been snacked, and Benenoch is staring at the ceiling. So that's something else we have to keep an eye on. But as far as first day in pads, the offensive line, I would give them a failing grade, a D at best. But like I said, it's early. And the last thing I have for the offense is the wide receiver position. Everyone looks great. It's going to be a really tough room. If they keep 5 receivers, it's going to be a battle. If they keep 6 receivers, it's a battle. The only thing I really have there is DeMarcus Lodge, that heralded Ole Miss trio, and he was the one guy that didn't get drafted, and I was happy the Bucs got him. But so again, it's a tough receiver room, but he hasn't practiced all 3 days, and I still don't know what's wrong with him. He looks fine. He's not wearing a boot or anything, and neither was Donovan Smith, by the way. He wasn't wearing a boot, and he's helping out at the drills, and he's not like standing off the side. He's in there with the wide receivers during individual drills, and and helping with drills to move along and shagging balls. But you're not going to make the team shagging balls, so I want to see him get out there because if it's 5 or 6 receivers, there's kind of that group of Bobo Wilson, Scotty Miller, Justin Watson. Like, they're going to keep 2 of those guys. They go with 5 receivers, or really going to keep one of those guys on the 53-man roster. And it's looking harder and harder for people sort of to break into that. And Lodge, from Ole Miss, and it's not Anderson. I'm sorry, the kid out of Buffalo. He made a real nice catch day 2. Anthony Johnson, I believe his name is. He's a wide receiver from Buffalo, big kid, athletic kid. That would sort of be my dark horse, and really the rest are sort of just can't meet. I know they're giving Schnell, who basically he's like a Scotty Miller clone. He's Adam Humphries type. He's getting some shots at punt returner. When they've been doing punt returns, out of the jug machines or live kicking, the 4 guys who've been back there has been Vernon Hargraves, Bobo Wilson, Scotty Miller, and Schnell. But I don't. If Schnell doesn't win the kick return job, which he'll have to prove in the preseason games, I don't think it's going to be real tough for that kid to make the team. And finally, we're going to end this off with the kicking competition. The first day of training camp, what they're doing is they're alternating days. Like the first day when they did the field goal drills, and they start out with an extra point, and the kicker kicks it, and they move back 5 yards, and he kicks it, move back 5 yards. Some people are saying like there's 9 kicks. Some people are saying there's 10 kicks. Some people are saying there's 12 kicks. That none of that really matters. What matters is when they're making them. So day 1, it was Santos, and that was totally all inside because it was raining pretty bad. So that was all inside practice, and Santos went out there, and he made the 52-yarder, It wasn't high off the net. And then he missed his 55 yarder that I'm not really sure would have made it over the crossbar, but it was wide right. And then the second day, when practice was outside all day long, I'm sure you've heard about this by now. So Gay gets up and he makes all of his. There was one that hit the very top, and I don't mean like the front of the post. It hit the very top of the upright. Like it came down and landed right on top of the upright and bounced out. BA has come out and said that that goalpost is crooked a little bit, so he counted that. But what Gay did on his 52-yarder, he put it over the net. And let me sort of set this scene for you. They put the goalposts up, and the kickers were kicking them. They kept banging them off the building, off the indoor facility. Sometimes they were kicking the other way towards one buck, and they were banging them off one buck, the glass in the windows. So what they decided to do is, instead of, putting up two more poles and hoisting the net up and putting it down like they do at the stadium, they just got a net, and for lack of a better term, they just zip tied it to the goalpost. So the net is right up against the goalpost, okay? So, and that's prevent from banging kicks off the building. Well, Gay gets up there in 52 yards and puts it over the net, so it's over the uprights, and bangs it off the building 52 yards. Well, they move 5 yards back, and he goes back to 57, and he does it again. And not only that, he hit it above the windows on the indoor facility. Now, the indoor facility, from where the actual posts are, it's 10 yards if it's a foot. It might be closer to 15 yards. And those windows are 15 to 20 feet high. And he put it over the net, over the goalpost, and banged it off the aluminum 20 feet high from 57. Now you add the 10 yards, so now we're looking at 67 yards, and that thing would have been good from 70. I mean, it's this kid's leg is live. I mean, he just uncorked it. And after that, I'm like, wow, geez, this kicking competition is over as long as Gay doesn't, can keep somewhere close to in the realm of Santos, from 45 yards and in. If Santos goes perfect, through training camp and preseason, 45 yards in, and misses, it goes 50% from 50 plus, it's Gay's job. If Gay just comes close, say Santos goes 20 for 20, 45 and in. All Gay has to do is do like 18 for 20, 17 for 20, because in Bruce Arians' press conference, when they brought up kickers, and this is the one, I believe it was, it was before training camp even started, the first day everybody reported, he said, what's important is that game-winning kick, that 50, 55, 58, 60-yard field goal to win the game or tie the game and put it into overtime. And, Santos was kicking inside, no elements, and it might have come up short, but he definitely missed, wide right on his 55-yarder. Then we got Gay banging him off the building from 55 yards over the net. But then, hey, Santos, I don't know where his power came from, but he went 10 for 10, 8 for 8, 12 for 12 from whatever. And he hit his 55-yarder, and it hit about middle of the net. So, he had plenty of leg that day too. So it's I still think, like I said, if Gay just keeps it close with inside 45, because his leg is special, I know a lot of people will say, and you're right, that, kicking in practice is different from kicking in preseason. It's definitely different from kicking in a game, and it's definitely different from kicking in a game where the game's on the line. And I heard something today, it was on Rick Stroud's podcast, that he's never had to kick a game-winning field goal in his college career. Now, he's only been kicking for 2 years. He was a soccer player before that, and, so I guess that's understandable, but, if you're looking for reasons to not keep Gay or, to keep Santos, that's about the only thing you can come up with. And, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. He hasn't attempted a game-winning kick. It's not that he's missed him. He's just never attempted one. So that's the kicking competition, and these guys are good, and they're nailing it. And it was it was nice to see Santos sort of answer the bell yesterday and show off his leg, because the one on the 65-yarder on the inside and 65-yarder on the outside, they were night and day, and like I said, it halfway up the net, so that probably would have been good from 60. So, what I'm going to tell you, and I'm just going to go ahead and recap because I'm out of here, guys. Once again, I have some of those fans' reactions, excited, worries, thoughts, in the can already. So we'll be hearing those coming up on future episodes. Now that they're in pads, these pods will probably be coming at you more on a daily basis. If life gets in the way, it might be, you might skip a day, but I'm back in it. I got everything figured out. Audacity makes sense to me again, and we're gonna get right back at it. But before I leave you guys, I want to put out an apology. I sort of stepped in it yesterday. Orion Stewart went down right in front of me, and he grabbed his knee immediately, and it does not look good. And I put out a tweet, and I said it was MJ Stewart. I saw the 3, I followed Stewart, I got excited, so I tweeted out there, and then I realized within like a minute, maybe less, that, oh, wait, that's not MJ Stewart, that's Orion Stewart. So I deleted the tweet, and then I put out there, my apologies, guys, fans, everybody, that was Orion Stewart, not MJ Stewart. And, some people yelled at me, and understandably, I get it, I wasn't quite expecting the harshness of some of the people that slid into my DMs had told me and had some choice words for me for, misidentifying a player. So again, I'm sorry. It was totally an accident, and to be honest, I even forgot Orion Stewart was on the roster. And if you're listening to this pod and you're going, how can you forget Orion Stewart's on the roster? I know that. I should be doing a pod. 1, go right ahead. You're more than welcome. And 2, I'm sorry, I messed up. But I did get a voicemail, and I think it sort of sums up kind of like the feedback. And again, I'm not complaining. It was my fault, and I get it. And I just find all that funny. I have really thick skin. Like, strangers that don't know me that call me names does not bother me. I kind of enjoy it too. Who knows why? But I'm going to leave you guys with this voicemail that I got from a fan who was upset that I misidentified MJ Stewart when Orion Stewart went down with a knee injury yesterday.
This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
You are full of bullshit, my friend. I will sue you for everything you have. I will sue your ass.